Hey guys, and welcome back. Okay, as I said in the overview video, today we're going to use some time to make a quick chart about measurement. In this chart, there's two things I want to talk to you about before we start writing down this chart. When we're talking about measurement, there are two types of measurement we use here in the United States. We use what's known as the U.S. standard system or the customary, but we also use the metric system at times. Now, these are both two different systems of measurement. So, we're going to make quick note of both of these. And all I'm going to do is just take out a marker, whichever one it may be, and I'm going to do, so you'll have the metric system. And then we have the U.S. standard or the customary, whichever you prefer to write here. Okay, so, and I'll call it customary just because that is going to match up our chart in a minute. So we have the metric system and we have the customary. Sorry if this is blurry. As I write, it tends to get blurrier. Customary system. Or you may hear it called the U.S. standard system. Now, this is the one we typically use here the most. We use the metric system when we're dealing with science more. So I'm going to make a note there real quick that it is used more in when we're dealing with science, more so than math. If I can find my pencil that I was just using. Okay, I think this one will work. Okay, so we're going to say that the metric system is generally used when we're dealing with science and in other countries outside the U.S. So I'm just going to write outside of the U.S. Now, the customary system or the U.S. standard system is what we use here in the U.S. when we're measuring capacity and when we're measuring things, how much something weighs or how long something is. We generally tend to use this one here. Okay, so I'm going to put the one that I'm going to say we use most. That way, you'll know which one in a minute when we make our chart. Okay, so now I'm going to make a T-chart of sorts, or maybe I should say a table. Okay, in the table, I'm going to divide it up. And our table is going to have two sides. It's going to have a metric side and a customary side. Okay, I know that you guys have done a lot of this measurement converting in or while you've been using Zern, and that's great. However, I do want you to understand the differences between the two and to have this chart. I'll also post a picture of this chart onto one of the Google Classrooms, or I'll send it to your teacher to post on your math Google Classroom for you to have if you'd rather do it that way. Okay, so I'm going to title this Units of Measurement. If you don't have a marker, it's fine. Use a pencil and do it. No worry to do it with different colors like I am. I'm just doing this for you guys to make it a little bit easier. Okay, so the first unit of measurement that we're going to talk about and make in our chart is actually we're going to be looking at length. Okay, so when we talk about length, remember our chart has two sides. We have the customary side, and I'll put a C up there so we know this is customary, and our metric side. So we'll do metric And then on the other side, we'll do customary. Okay, when you're talking about length of something, um, we're looking at how long something is. When I ask you how tall you are, you're probably going to tell me 1 foot, so many inches. That is that's what we do here. Um, in the metric system, they use milliliters, which is mm, centimeters, which is cm, decimeters, which is dm, meters, and kilometers. You may have heard of the kilometers when somebody has said something about, oh, I ran in a 5K. It was judged, the distance of it was most likely judged with kilometers. Okay, so let's get on with our table. So on the metric side, when we're dealing with length, I told you we had 1 millimeter, which equals, this is the smallest unit. Okay, so there's nothing else that equals that. All right, and then in the customary, I'm going to go ahead and draw a quick line through here. And I'm only going to do about 4. Okay, so there's length of our metric side and our customary side. Okay, so we have, this is smallest, and I'm going to write smallest here. This is the smallest unit on the metric side. And then over here on the customary side, our smallest is an inch when we're measuring length. So we have 1 inch, and that is our smallest unit. Okay, now from an inch, we go to a foot. Now, the question is, if you have 1 foot, how many inches do you have? 1 foot is 12 inches. A ruler shows this. It will show you that you have 1 foot and 12 inches. Okay, continuing down the customary side. Now, if we have more than 1 foot, let's say we have 3 feet, then we have equaled up to 1 yard. Okay? And the last one on the customary side, if we have 1,760 yards, we have this equivalent of 1 mile. Now, over here, to abbreviate for a foot, I didn't do it, but you can if you want to. Foot is abbreviated FT, yard is abbreviated YD, mile is abbreviated MI. Okay, all right, so that's the customary side dealing with length. Back over to the metric side. When we're talking about the metric system, we have next, after the millimeter, we have 1 centimeter, which is equal to 10 milliliters. Okay, and I did mm because milliliter, the abbreviation for milliliter, is mm. The abbreviation for centimeter is cm. Okay, all right, moving on. The next, if we have 100 millimeters or 10 centimeters, that gives us 1 decimeter, and that is abbreviated dm. And so if you have 1 decimeter, you have 10 centimeters or 100 millimeters. Okay, let me shift this up a little bit. All right, now if you need to stop this at any point in time to catch up, please do so. Do not feel like you have to rush through this with me. Okay, all right, moving on. So from the decimeter, we go to 1 meter. Meter is abbreviated with just the letter M, and equivalency to 1 meter is either 10 decimeters, dm, or 100 centimeters, or how many millimeters do you think? Correct, 1,000 millimeters. You can probably pick up on the pattern over here that we're seeing. This system is based off base 10 system. I could give you a lot of history on the metric and the customary, but I won't bore you to death with that tonight or today. Okay, all right, moving on. There's one more on this system that we won't use in fourth grade. You'll use it later on in math, and that is you have one. Well, you may see it, kilometer. Some people say kilometer. Its abbreviation is km, and it is equal to 1,000 meters, 10,000 decimeters, 100,000 centimeters, and 1,000,000 millimeters. Okay, now I need to excuse that. Okay, so we're done with length. And we have our metric and our customary side. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and draw this off. Okay, now moving from length, we are going to talk about capacity next. Now, when I'm talking about capacity, I'm talking about how much it takes to fill something up. Okay, so think liquid when you're talking about this. Okay, so with capacity, we're going to have our metric side and our customary side. Again, metric. And then we're going to move in and have a customary over here. Okay. All right. Now with this, we actually, in this side, whereas we had more on the metric side, we're going to have more on the customary side this time. You're going to need about 5 lines on this one. Drawing my table out. I'm going to get myself a little more room this time than I did last time. Okay. Okay. So when we're talking about metric here, and we're talking about, and we're starting on the metric side. Okay. With metric, you have there the smallest unit when you're talking about capacity on the metric side is a milliliter. And whereas this was millimeter, this is milliliter. Okay. So don't get the two confused. One's dealing with length and one is dealing with capacity. Sorry, guys. I couldn't read my other handwriting. Okay, so you have milliliter. M-I-L-L-I-L-I-T-E-R. It is abbreviated with a small m and a big L. This is the smallest unit, so you really can't compare it to anything at this point or equal anything. So I'm going to write smallest unit. You have next, you go to 1 liter, L-I-T-E-R. That is abbreviated with an uppercase L. And that is equivalent to 1,000 milliliters. And that's it. That's all that's used on the metric side when we're dealing with capacity. Okay, let's move over to the customary side. Now, when we're talking about capacity on the customary here in the U.S., we're talking about fluid ounces as our smallest unit. That's our first. So we say 1 fluid ounce, O-U-N-C-E. The abbreviation for that is FL space OZ. Again, this is the smallest unit, so there's nothing to compare it to. Okay, next, if we have 8 fluid ounces, then we also now have 1 full cup. So 1 cup is equal to 8 fluid ounces. Okay, now next, if we end up with, let's say, 2 cups, cups is abbreviated with a C. If we have 2 cups, or we have 16 fluid ounces, that means we now have 1 pint. Pint is abbreviated with the letter lowercase p and a lowercase t. Okay, moving from, so we have a fluid ounce, 1 ounce, of ounces, we have cups, and we have pints. Now, from pints, let's move into next. If you have, what's next? If you have, let's say, 2 pints, or you have 4 cups, or you have 32 fluid ounces, then you end up with 1 quart. Quart, and that abbreviation is QT. Okay, and our last one, and I'm going to bring this in a little closer. This looks kind of hard to read, so I'm going to bring that in. Okay, and the last one over here on the customary side that we'll end up with is something I'm sure you're all familiar with and have heard of before, and that is that's the gallon. To end up with a gallon, and you abbreviate gallon with GAL, all lowercase, you either need 4 quarts or 8 pints or 16 cups or 128 fluid ounces. And that's it for capacity. Now, we only have weight, the weight left, mass or weight. So I'm going to have to flip to a new page in my journal because I have run out of room here. As you can see, sorry guys, this is kind of cramped up here in my makeshift office. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and flip my page. And I'm going to have to make a new one. I'm not going to do it on the back because you can see that one has bled through. Okay, so at the top of my page, I'm going to write continue measurement. Continue ... and then I'll just write the word measurement again. Okay, now continuing on with measurement, the last 2 sections I'll do is one that's dealing with weight. So again, we have a metric side and we have a customary side. So I'm going to put at the top of this one, metric mass. And then over here on this side, I'm going to write customary weight. Customary, or remember US, what we use the majority of the time. Customary weight. Oh, can't see that. Okay, hold on. All right. Okay, so when we're dealing with mass in the metric side, I'm going to go back to my purple and write it this way so it's a little bit easier to see. So the first one we have is 1 gram. G-R-A-M. This is the smallest unit when dealing with mass, meaning how much something it weighs. You abbreviate gram with a lowercase g. It's the smallest unit, so it doesn't equal anything. The next the next one in metric mass is kilograms. If I have 1 kilogram, which is abbreviated with a K and an M, I end up with 1,000 grams. And that's it. That is it for the metric mass. So now let's move over to the customary weight side. Okay, when we're dealing with customary weight, let's see, our color was green on the other page, so we'll stick with green. The first one we have as our smallest unit is back to the same word, but it has a different meaning. When you're dealing with weight, our smallest unit is again 1 ounce. But notice it is not fluid ounce like it was when we were dealing with capacity. This is just 1 ounce. And this is also the smallest unit, so there's nothing to compare it to. Remember, ounce is abbreviated with the letters OZ. Okay, next up we have 1 pound. To abbreviate pound, you use the letters L, lowercase l, lowercase b. And 1 pound is the equivalent of 16 ounces. Next up for customary weight, we go to from pounds. When you get to the point where you have more than 2,000 pounds, you have now made it to 1 ton. So for example, an elephant weighs approximately 7 tons. Okay, to abbreviate ton, it is a capital T, and that is approximately 2,000 pounds or 32,000 ounces. Okay, not fluid ounces, just ounces. And that's it for weight and mass, which is the same thing depending on which one you're talking about. Okay, so we're going to draw a line under that so we know we're done with that one. We're almost done with our table. Hang in there with me, guys. I know you're probably bored. Okay, moving on from mass and weight, we go into something you all are very familiar with. And this is time. Now, when we're dealing with time, it is the same worldwide. There's no metric, there's no customary. We all use the same system of measurement when we're dealing with time. You all should know by this stage in your life what the smallest unit of time is. And if you don't, I'm about to tell you. So, the smallest unit of time is 1, and I'm going to use a different color to do this. When speaking with time, the smallest unit is a second. So 1 second. Second is abbreviated with SEC. And that is the smallest unit, so it doesn't equal anything right now. Okay? Now, when we're dealing next up, if you have 60 seconds, you have 1 minute. Minute is abbreviated MIN, and that equals 60. It's the same as 60 seconds. If you have 60 minutes, you have the equivalency of 1 hour. Hour is abbreviated HR. And then so on and so forth. If you have 24 hours, you have now equaled up to 1 day. And if you have 7 days, you have 1 week. The abbreviation for week is WK. If you have 4 weeks, you have 1 month. month is abbreviated MO, lowercase, both of them. If you have 12, let me scoot up. Let me write this well. 12 months. Remember, MO is months. Then you have 1 year. Year is abbreviated YR. All right, and I'm going to move it up a little bit so you guys can see this. Okay, if you have 10 years, you end up with 1 decade. If you have 100 years, you have 1 century. If you have 1,000 years, you have 1 millennium. Okay, so that is it for our 2 charts for today. Now, I gave you these because I want you to be able to use them on your classwork today. Your classwork is going to come from page 427 in your math workbooks. So this is where it's going to come from. Now, if you don't need all those charts and stuff that I just wrote down, fine. I will tell you that on page 428, a page over from 427, it gives you a small chart that you can use, or table, I should say, of some equivalences. So that is it on the math workbook. The next video up will be a short video of me showing you how to convert measurements in case there are still questions from where you were doing Zearn for the past few weeks. So stay tuned and we'll keep moving on. Thanks, guys.